How to act realistically, 10 steps. It's going to be super simple and super easy to understand. That's the one thing that I don't like when you're watching acting videos, when you can't understand it or you don't have things that you can actually implement. You get ideas and theories, but then you don't get things that you can implement for yourself. So in today's video, we're going to have those things that you can implement. You're going to be finding out 10 things that are going to help your acting become more realistic. It may be point number 2 that's giving you a problem, or it may be point number 8, but you won't know until you watch it all the way through and find out what each point is. So stick through it all, and we're going to get into this video right now. So point number 1 is this. You as an actor have to work on your memorization skills. The reason memorization is so important, and I think that people don't give enough emphasis into it, because I'll hear people talk about, oh, memorization is not something you have to work on, it's just something you have to have as an actor. But it's not true. Memorization is a skill, which means your memorization next year, next month, can be better than it is today, which means it's something that can be learned and developed. The reason that it's important to develop this is because you may be getting a lot of auditions for yourself as an actor, or you may get booked on a part, and you don't want to be that actor who gets booked on a part and has a hard time memorizing your lines, because what happens is when you get on set and everybody's spending a lot of money on you, on lights, on directors, on everything that they're spending money on, and you walk onto that set and the camera's on you, what you're going to be thinking about if you don't have a good memorization process is, do I have my lines down? Are my lines okay? Because you're going to be freaking out and scrambling to try and memorize your lines, and you won't be able to be fully committed to the other actor that you're in a scene with. Now, when you're not fully committed and you're not in the scene with the other actor, that's where dissonance happens. You'll see this in different classes that you go and take. You might even see it in some performances that you've seen before. If you have your lines memorized and you're able to go through that process easily for yourself, it builds a certain confidence. And when you have that sort of confidence in yourself, it's a lot easier for you to stay present and in the moment. It's the lack of confidence that it's easy for us to be taken out of the situation that we're in within that scene. So that's why we have to work on our memorization process first. Point number 2 is knowing your character's wants. The want of your character is very important because it allows you to know how you, as the actor, should go and navigate through a given scene. Meaning, if you've ever seen Formula 1, these F1 drivers, and they're racing around and they're going at 200 miles an hour around the track, you can't just eyeball it and say, hey, I have to turn here, I have to turn here. You have to know where you're going. You have to know what the track is, and depending on the track that you're on will affect how you are racing on that track. The same thing is with actors. Depending on what your want is as a character defines how you're going to navigate in a given scene. Meaning, if you're going to go and talk to your boss, if you want to ask your boss for a raise, you're going to navigate that scene differently, meaning you're going to talk differently. You're going to have different inflections in your voice. You might have some different mannerisms. You might look at your boss differently compared to if you want to tell your boss that he's the worst person in the world and that you're quitting today and that you got a much better job offer. In that situation, your want to quit and to humiliate your boss is going to be different for you on how you navigate that scene, how you look at your boss, how you talk to your boss, how you receive the information that your boss is giving to you when he's interacting with you will be completely different because your want is different, and the want helps you navigate through a scene just like a race car driver has to navigate through a track. You have to know your wants. This becomes especially important when you're going to be doing self-tapes for yourself, because as an actor, you're going to have to record yourself a lot and sending in audition tapes to casting directors. I see so many actors going and recording themselves not having a true want in their mind for what their character needs. Now, you have to realize sometimes you're going to get a script and the writing might not be any good, or maybe it's hard for you to find your character's wants. Even if it's hard, you have to make a definitive decision on what your character wants, because then you navigate in a true way through that scene. When you don't know what you want, you don't navigate it in a true way, and that's what makes your acting come across as not being believable or realistic. If you want it to be believable and realistic, then you want to make sure that you have a want for yourself. Point number 3 is to go and play around with the scene. Make sure that you realize for yourself that a scene can change and adjust. I see a lot of actors who think that they're a great and talented actor if they make a decision on a scene and they stick to that through and through no matter what happens to them. That is not a good actor. That is a static actor. That is an actor who stays in one spot and is not able to adjust and mold and shift. You will have an idea on a scene on how it's supposed to be portrayed, how your character is supposed to be, but the director may have a different opinion, or the actor you're working with may throw you a curveball, and all of a sudden you have to adjust in that scene because of how your actor is working and responding with you. Or maybe the casting director is working with you and saying, hey, I want to see you play this scene differently in another way. Maybe they're trying to see, are you an actor who can take direction and is not just stuck and focused on one point of view? So make sure as an actor you're able to adjust and be flexible. If you don't have a flexibility within your work, that can make it come across as unrealistic and unbelievable to the people working with you, because they're saying, hey, you can do this scene in one way, but the minute we change it, all of a sudden you can't do it. And part of the way to break free from this is realizing that your character can move in a lot of different directions, that different things can happen within that scene, and not getting married to one specific outcome just because it was your first idea. Point number 4 is figure out your moments before. You need to know for yourself what happened before you went into this scene. Meaning, let's say you have to go and ask your parents if you can borrow their car keys. Well, depending on what happened before this scene, before you walk through the door, is going to affect how you ask them. Meaning, let's say right before this scene, you went and got beat up by your school bully. And now you have to come in, you have to walk into this house, you got a black eye, and you have to ask your parents for the car keys. Or, let's change it a little bit and say, you're going to walk into this house, but right before you walk in, you see that you have the winning lotto ticket in your hand, and you're going to walk in the house, and you're going to ask your parents for the car keys. Now, this is a very simple scenario. This is not even a great scene that we just came up with. But the point to realize is that different backstories, different things happened right before this scene that will shift and change how you interact in this moment. There have been times probably in your own life where you're about to walk into your room and you had one attitude going on. Maybe you were in a great mood, everything's going good, and then all of a sudden you get a text message, and depending on what that message says, or you get a phone call, and depending on what they're saying to you, it changes your mood. All of a sudden, you were one person outside that door, and right when you walk through, you changed because of what happened beforehand. We do it in our everyday life, and it affects us in a scene. Now, when you can do this, and the casting director's watching you, or the director's watching you, they're going, wow, you're bringing a lot to this character because you're realizing something happened beforehand, and that's making you walk into this room and bringing something interesting into that scene. Next, we're going to be talking about text analysis. So I see not enough actors doing text analysis skills. Text analysis is something that allows you to go and really define who your character is. So I'm going to give you one example of a text analysis skill that you can implement and start using for yourself. There's a lot of different things. There's quite a few things that I do for myself, but I'm going to give you this simple one that you can do, and it's one of the most important ones. So what I do is I get on a piece of paper, I'm going to write down facts. I'm going to look at the scene that I got from the casting director, or if I'm lucky enough to get the whole script, or if I got booked on the part, I will still do this. I will look at my scene, I'm going to look through it and find all the facts that I can about this character that I have. So, hey, is this character a brother or sibling? Is this character engaged? Is this character in a relationship? Are they not in a relationship? Is this character in high school? Is this character in college? Where is this character in their point of life? I'm going to write down every single fact that I know. Not any opinions. Not that I'm going to say, hey, I think this character really likes to go and ride his bike. Do I know the character likes to ride his bike? Does he say he likes to ride his bike? Or is he just riding the bike in the scene? I'm not going to write down opinions, but I'm going to be writing down facts that I absolutely know. So I write down all the facts for myself. Then on a separate sheet of paper, what I'm going to write down is what do I not know? I'm going to start writing down, oh, I don't know this, I don't know that. I'm going to fill this paper out. Then what I'm going to find for myself and realize is I'm going to look at the facts. And I'm going to realize by looking at these facts and looking at all the different points that I wrote down, all of a sudden it starts to fill in the gaps on some of the points that I don't know about this character. And ultimately, what do I start finding out? I start finding out that I actually do know this character more than I thought, but I had to go through this process of writing out all the facts and then filling in the blanks for what I don't know. Now, here's the thing that becomes really important and magical with this. You now start bringing in something that every other actor doesn't bring into this audition. You start knowing this character better than 90% of the other actors auditioning for this role. A lot of actors, when they get a scene or a script, they don't go and make a lot of different notes for themselves, knowing, okay, this is my character, this is the ones. A lot of them don't do text analysis. A lot of them just say, okay, this is a scene, let me go and let me just try and play it. No, you don't want to do that for yourself. You want to try and give yourself the best upper hand that you can. Now, the more you know about your character, the more you know how that character is going to interact in a scene. Now, the more that you know means that when you go into the scene and you start recording yourself and you start going and sending off your self-tapes, when casting directors watch you, they're going to say, wow, you're bringing a lot to this character. There's a whole story going on that you're able to bring because you've done your homework. Point number 6, start asking yourself why. Why is your character doing what you're doing? Part of getting a deeper meaning and intention behind our characters is asking the question why. But the writer for this thing could have chosen to write anything in the world that they wanted, but they chose to write whatever it was that they did in the scene. If your character goes and gets in a fight with somebody, and then they go off to a new location, are they going to their best friend's house? Are they going to their parents' house? Are they going into their own house? Are they sneaking into their house? You have to ask yourself the question of why. Why is my character choosing to go to his best friend's house? Why is he doing that? Why is my character choosing to go back home? Does he feel comfortable going home? Is he obligated to go home? Or why is the character sneaking in so nobody sees him? Okay, well maybe that's going to tell me a story. Is he embarrassed? Is he ashamed? Does he get beat up all the time? Is this the first time he's ever been beat up? And once you start asking these questions, then you start realizing that there's answers that have to be fulfilled. And once you start fulfilling these answers for yourself, sometimes it's in the text and you're able to do that. Sometimes you have to go and use your own imagination because it's not in the text. But when you go and fill in those bubbles and you fill in that information for yourself, you start bringing a whole world to the character, and that makes you compelling to watch. All right, point number 7. So our last few points were telling us, hey, these are things that you should add in for yourself and start implementing for your acting so you can act more realistically. And when people watch you, they can go, wow, you're a really good, believable, realistic actor. Now I'm going to be telling you guys some things to maybe take away from yourself to try and help your acting become more realistic as well. So one big thing that happens with actors when they're being filmed is they talk too loud. And this has a lot to do sometimes if you're taking theater classes or if you're just not aware that the camera's literally right here in front of you, but you still feel like you have to talk louder than the camera's actually there. You're trying to pretend like the person is the camera or right next to the camera. They're that distance away. So I see a lot of actors when they have a scene, if it's something like, hey, how are you doing is the text, they might say, hey, how are you doing? All of a sudden they start raising their voice and talking louder, going, hey, this is how I should talk because I'm supposed to be an actor, right? No, that's not it at all. You don't have to go and raise your voice. And when you do raise your voice and you do start talking louder as if maybe the person's in the other room when the person's supposed to be right here, it becomes really awkward to watch. There's a lot of different scenes, like maybe you're doing a scene and you're on a bench and you're sitting next to the person. You're supposed to be a relatively close distance. Once you start talking louder, then it starts seeming unbelievable. Now, this doesn't mean that you should just always talk quiet in a scene. You just have to make it realistic as if the distance is actually true. Now, the one thing that you don't want to get confused for yourself is thinking that, oh, okay, well, I'm just never going to yell or shout in a scene. No, sometimes you have to yell. Sometimes you have to shout in a scene. If somebody's walking down the street and they're going to get hit by a bus, well, you should yell so they know that, hey, they're going to get hit by a bus. There are certain times and moments where it's okay to go and yell and talk louder in a scene, and you should do that. But you have to realize that it shouldn't be a constant. You should more so try and keep it realistic as if the person's right here, just like we do in our everyday lives. When you're at your job, when you're talking with your boss or your best friend, you're not always having to go and shout and talk really, really loud, but you can talk like you're here and you're intimate and you can really interact with them as if they're here with you. Point number 8 is to watch out for big movements. A lot of times actors think that they have to go and make all these movements to be memorable and noticed, and you don't. In the camera, especially when you're doing self-tapes, you're in a particular frame for yourself. So sometimes movement can be too big or it can be too much just because the frame only gets so much of you. Whereas in person, if you're actually talking with somebody, they get to see your whole body. On a self-tape, when you're doing it, they don't get to see your whole body. Don't make it basically a theater performance. Point number 9 are going to be the eyes. The eyes are the gateway into the soul. The eyes tell a story. I always talk about this. If you want to have realistic acting, you have to realize that your eyes are constantly doing the acting for you. So if I'm here and I'm in a scene with somebody, I can go and look at them, and you have to be able to see my eyes because my eyes are going to be telling a certain story depending on how I look at this person. Now, the one thing you don't want to do is all of a sudden just have your eyes down and then nobody can see your eyes at all, and then the casting director is wondering what is going on with this actor or character. Now, can you look down? Yes. Can your eyes not be seen for a moment? Yes, it can. But I do make sure for myself that I do have my eyes, if I'm here looking at somebody, and then if I have to look down and have this tell a story, my eyes are still here, but they're visible. It's not completely gone and shielded. So if I'm here, this tells a certain story. This tells a story. If I look over here, this tells a certain story. And if I look right here, this is going to tell a certain story. Now, point number 10, and the last point here for you, is to ultimately have fun with this process. As an actor, if you can't learn to have fun in your work and within the process, meaning you're going to have a lot of auditions that you're going to audition for, and you're not going to book that audition. It will happen. It happens to every single actor out there. The thing that you have to realize for yourself is it's really easy to get beaten down by that. And ultimately, if you start getting beat down too much by that fact, what ends up happening is when you start going into the work and you start trying to do your scenes, is there stops being a life that comes through. So you have to find ways for yourself on how you can go and enjoy the scene, enjoy the process, realizing, hey, you got a lucky opportunity to go and audition for a new project. That's great. That's awesome. Try to find the joy in that, because if you don't and you're not having fun with it, it's easy for your acting to not become realistic, because then you stop putting in the effort. Then that's when some trouble can come into play for you. So congratulations on everybody who made it through. Go ahead and leave this emoji down in the comment section below so I know that you made it all the way through. And if you want to see more videos, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And of course, there's our 10-hour acting masterclass 2.0 version down in the description down below. All right, see you guys later.